Ladies and gentlemen, I know I've been really quiet. I haven't been participating in the community and I haven't really responded to a lot of tickets. That is because one of our members pointed out that when I released SiteKrafter version 6.1, the grid system was not working. So this was very frustrating for me. So I had to go in and try and fix this issue. And I'm glad to say that in this version now, 6.1.4, it is now working. So I just want to do a quick demo and show you how it's working. And I also have 2 more updates that I've added to this to make our framework work even better. I'm going to have this download available tomorrow, and it will also come with the download for the reference and also the style guide. Okay, so let me show you the updates. So over here, I have a blank page that I've put together. So let's go in and add a bit of content in our first section here. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and I'm going to add my row. So in this row, let's just add some images. So we're going to search for our image module like that and then add it. So we want to add a few in here. So let's add, let's say about 4. How about that? So if we want to add, or if you want to make this grid work, you just come over here to row settings and then you go to your row like that. And then we can now go to advanced, CSS ID and classes. And then our first thing that we need to type here, or our first class, is called grid. So you type in grid and then space. And then let's first of all work with grid auto. So we're going to type in grid dash auto. So now you can see automatically it has given us our grid. So we can add as many items as we want in here. And as you can see here, this is now pretty much working. Okay. It's also fully responsive and everything is fine. Okay. Now let's add another grid. So this time we're going to do the same. Let's add blurbs this time. So we're going to add a few of these again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we've got 5. And this time making sure that we select our row. And then over here, we need to select our column. And then we're going to go to advanced, CSS ID and classes. And again, we are going to start with our grid like that. But this time now, we're going to say grid calls, let's say 2, grid columns 3. Oops. Okay, so we need to say grid first and then grid columns 3. So you can see now we have 3. In fact, you know what? This top one here is distracting us. I'm sure you can agree with me. Okay, so grid and then grid calls 3. Okay, that shows 3 columns. And this is ideal in situations where you know you want to have 3 columns. Okay, so let's say we change it to 4. Now we got grid columns 4. And then we can go to 5. We can go to 6. I know it looks ridiculous, but of course the feature is there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with, let's say 4. Okay, grid calls 4. So now it shows us that we have 4 columns. So let's just go ahead and just fill this in. So these are 4 columns. And then if we come here, you can see there that they don't really respond to our mobile views. So you need to use this in situations where you know you want to use something very specific. So now let me show you what we're going to do with the extra features that we have here. So let's say I want this to span 2 columns. So what we do is we select it like that, and then we come over here now to advanced, CSS ID classes, and this is where now we say call for column dash, and then we're going to say span 2 like that, span dash 2. So now it has taken 2 spaces. So we can see already we now have a unique layout here. So again, if we do that, you can see now that we have 1 column here but it's taking 2 spaces. Okay, right. So now that we have this, let's say we want a situation where we want this to span as rows. So we can say row span 2. So I know you don't see it here, but it is spanning 2 here. So for us to really see what is happening, we're going to select this and we're going to go in and add a bit of code in here. So we want to add a padding. So we're going to say PAD dash large, okay, or even medium. And then we're also going to say BG for background dash gray. And then we're going to go with gray 800, because we want to make sure that we see exactly what we have. So if you have something like this, maybe it's a menu, you can see there it's spanning 2 columns. If you want it to span 3, it's going to go all the way down there. But I mean 2, we have now a unique layout. Okay, so we can say row span 2, and then we can also say column span 2, which means that this will now extend and cover 2 of these spaces. Okay, so you can see here, if we delete, this stays as it is, but as soon as we add our columns here, it will span with the column, which means that it's going to take that whole space. And one more time, I'm going to do the columns. So we can say cols, and then you can see there in this nice border that is taking all that space. So you can really play around with this and have a unique layout, and this is using rows. So basically this is now working, and I'm really excited about this because this really got me thinking and really got me really stressed out. So this is now working. Now let's move on and let's talk about our latest feature here. So let's say you're trying to build a nice hero area. So let's go in and start adding our text here. So we're going to start off with our text module like that. And we are going to get rid of all this. Okay. And let's duplicate this. And in here, we are going to add the paragraph text. Okay, so in the first one here, we want to make this a nice big heading. So we're going to come over here to advanced, CSS ID and classes. And this is going to be heading large. Okay, and we can also center it like that. And we're going to say font dash, let's give it, let's say 800. Okay, we want it nice and bold. Okay, and then for our text here, let's go in and let's add our class and make it fluid. So we are going to say SK. Okay, and then we are just going to center it like that. So now we have our text and it's all centered. In fact, let's add our margin top. So it's empty dash. Let's go with large. Okay, let's go with medium. Okay, so now that we have this, you can see that our text is going all the way to the edge. Okay, so for our main heading area, this may not be ideal for us. Okay, so in fact, we could add another word here to make it nice and bigger, so it's filling most of the space. So now that we have this, ideally, this doesn't work great if we want to have our main heading for this section here. So the new class that we've added here is called row narrow. So I'm going to select this row, and then I'm going to come over here to advanced, CSS ID and classes, and then I'm going to say row dash narrow. Okay, now watch what happens. Boom. Now it is narrow. So it is now nice and easy to read. And this is ideally what you need for a hero section. So now I can go in here on my section and go to advanced. And then now I can say CSS ID and classes. And I think for section it's SEC, and we can go large. In fact, that's too much. Let's go medium. Okay. So that's great. And I may also want to add a background. So I'm going to say BG dash gray, let's go with 50. Very nice and light. Okay, so now we have our hero area. If you want to add our call to action, we can always go in and add our call to action. But let's say we also want to improve our design and let's say some images here, but we want them to stretch all the way to the edge. So here's what we can do. I'm going to say image, and I'm going to go and add my image in here. And we're going to add a few, let's say 4 of them. And we're going to go into our section settings, and we're going to go into this row. Now, to make things easier for us, I'm just going to go in and say grid like that. And then I'm going to say grid auto, grid dash auto. Okay, so this now has made our grid auto, and you can see I can also add even more, and everything is going to be nice and responsive. Look at that. So in fact, I really like the grid auto because it is auto responsive, unlike the grid calls one. But of course, I'm going to update it so that next time we use it in our next update, it is going to be fully responsive. Anyway, so now that we have this, right? Maybe for this type of design, we want our design here to go edge to edge. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We can come over here to our row settings like that. And then we're going to go to advanced, CSS ID and classes. And then we're going to say row dash full. Look at that. So now it's going edge to edge. Of course, it's close to my text there. So I'm going to say empty for margin top dash L for large. Okay, so now I have my space here. But this now is going edge to edge, okay? But of course, if I add another one, it's going to go below. But if you take a look here, you can see that it's going all the way. Now, I know it's not very clear here, so what I'm going to do for you is to just show you what it looks like in its own section, because right now we manipulated this to be section large, okay? So now let's drag this to the bottom. So I'm going to come over here, drag this. Oops, I'm dragging the wrong item. We need to drag the row. Okay, so there we go. So now we can see it is going edge to edge. Okay, that's because we don't have any classes on this one. So as you can see here, it is very easy now for us to have our rows, which are going to be uniform across the whole website, because it is now edge to edge, as you can see. So we have our main hero area. Now we have this. So we can remove our padding if we needed to here, and then this can be flash with our design here. Okay, so that's our update for version 6.1.4. As I mentioned, it's going to be available very soon. I'm going to drop an email so everyone can see the email, and it will have all the instructions of where to download pretty much everything that you need for this update. Thank you very much for your patience. Now, there's also something very exciting that I've just saw today before I recorded this video, and our next update for Divi 5 is going to include Flexbox. I mean, this is really awesome. It's amazing. And this now is the time where once we have this update, we are now going to have dynamic designs, and I'm going to be working on the course for Divi 5, because this layout system is going to be default for elegant themes, and it's a huge update. So look forward to the courses now, and a lot more advanced tutorials for Divi 5, and these will be for our community. And for those of you that haven't purchased SiteKrafter yet, SiteKrafter Pro, please go ahead and do so. It is at a 40% discount, and the price is going to change very soon, because really, if you purchase it now, you're locking yourself into future updates, and you have full access to pretty much everything in Divi University, including upcoming courses, upcoming themes, plugins, pretty much anything else that I'm going to create from this moment onwards. You are going to get it absolutely free. So once you purchase it, you'll have access to everything. Anyway, I'll leave links to all of that in the video description below. Thank you very much for your patience. I know I've been really quiet, and I am going to be catching up with all the tickets in the community. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.